The ghost unit that never existed, until they exposed the deadliest spy network of World War II. The explosion tore through the foggy French countryside at 0342 hours, sending Sergeant Jack Brennan face-first into frozen mud. His ears rang with a high-pitched whine that drowned out everything except the frantic beating of his own heart. Around him, 12 men from Baker Company's reconnaissance unit scrambled for cover as machine gun fire ripped through the pre-dawn darkness, tracers lighting up the mist like deadly fireflies. Welcome to War Stories Vault. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold World War II stories that history tried to bury. Ambush. Fall back to the tree lean. Brennan's voice cracked as he shouted, tasting blood and cordite. But there was no tree lean anymore. The Germans had anticipated their route perfectly, cutting down the forest cover with systematic precision. They'd walked straight into a kill box. Private Danny Mitchell, barely 19 and 3 weeks into his first combat deployment, clutched his M1 Garand with white-knuckled terror. "Sarge, they knew. They knew we were coming." His voice pitched high with panic. Brennan grabbed the kid's collar and dragged him behind a blown-out supply truck. "Keep your head down and return fire." But even as he said it, Brennan's mind raced with the same terrible realization. This wasn't a random encounter. This was deliberate. Someone had told the Germans exactly where they'd be. The impossible choice. Corporal Vincent "Vinny" Romano crawled through the mud toward Brennan's position, his Brooklyn accent cutting through the chaos. "We got wounded. Thompson took shrapnel to the leg, Henderson's not moving, and we got at least 4 more pinned in that ditch." He pointed toward a depression 50 yards away where muzzle flashes revealed desperate men fighting for their lives. The German MG-42 opened up again, its terrifying rate of fire earning it the nickname, Hitler's Buzzsaw. Brennan watched chunks of the truck disintegrate under the onslaught. They had maybe 2 minutes before the Germans repositioned and finished them all. "Listen to me," Brennan gripped Vinny's shoulder, his eyes hard. "There's only one way out of this. We need a diversion." "A diversion?" Vinny's face went pale in the darkness. "Sarge, that's suicide. It's the only chance those men in the ditch have." Brennan pulled out the map they'd been given at briefing, studying it by the light of burning wreckage. The intel said this area was lightly defended. "Someone set us up, Vinny. Someone wanted us dead." Before Vinny could respond, a new voice cut through the gunfire. "Nobody's dying today, Sergeant." The ghost appears. From the smoke stepped a figure that seemed to materialize from the mist itself. Dressed in modified combat gear with no unit insignia, face darkened with camouflage paint, the stranger carried a weapon Brennan had never seen before, some kind of modified Thompson with a suppressor that shouldn't exist. "Who the hell are you?" Brennan raised his pistol, but the stranger was faster, pressing a finger to his lips. "Captain Nathan Cross. And if you want to live, shut up and follow my lead." His voice carried an authority that made even Brennan hesitate. "I've been tracking you since you left base. That radio call you received directing you to this position. It was fake. You were set up by a German infiltration unit operating inside Allied command." "That's impossible," Brennan started. "Is it?" Cross gestured to the perfectly positioned ambush. "They knew your route, your timing, even which truck you'd take cover behind. How do you think that happens?" Mitchell whimpered as bullets sparked off metal inches from his head. "I don't care who he is, Sarge. We're gonna die if we don't move." Cross dropped to one knee, his eyes scanning the German positions with unnatural precision. "You've got 3 MG-42 nests. 27 soldiers. 1 officer directing fire from that farmhouse at your 9 o'clock. He pointed without looking. "They're expecting you to retreat the way you came. That's where they've positioned mortars." "How could you possibly know all that?" Vinny demanded. "Because I've been living behind enemy lines for 16 months. Cross pulled out what looked like a flare gun but was clearly something else entirely. My unit specializes in impossible situations. Welcome to Operation Ghost Protocol. The counterattack nobody saw coming. Cross fired the strange device. Instead of a flare, it released a canister that burst overhead, filling the air with thick white smoke that mixed with the fog to create absolute zero visibility. But this wasn't ordinary smoke, it had a chemical component that made Brennan's eyes water instantly. Gas masks, someone screamed from the German lines. It's not gas, Cross said calmly, already moving. But they don't know that. Brennan, take Mitchell and Romano. Move to your left flank. There's a drainage ditch that runs parallel to their position. When you hear my signal, 3 shots, suppressed, you open up on that farmhouse with everything you've got. What about the men in the ditch? Brennan grabbed Cross's arm. Already taken care of. Cross pulled away and vanished into the smoke like he'd never existed. Brennan stared at the space where the mysterious captain had been. Every instinct told him to question this, to demand answers, to follow protocol. But protocol had gotten them ambushed. Protocol had gotten his men killed. Move. Brennan made the choice, leading Mitchell and Vinny through the chaos. The first revelation. As they crawled through the drainage ditch, Brennan heard something that made his blood run cold. German voices, but not shouting orders or calling for backup. They were speaking English. Told you the coordinates were accurate. Command never suspected. The voice cut off abruptly, followed by 3 soft coughs that weren't coughs at all. Cross's signal. Brennan popped up from the ditch and opened fire on the farmhouse. Vinny and Mitchell joined in, their weapons creating a devastating crossfire. The smoke was clearing now, and what Brennan saw made him question everything. Bodies. German soldiers down, but not from the ambush positions. They were scattered, taken out with surgical precision from behind their own lines. Cross had somehow moved through the entire enemy position and eliminated key targets without a single alarm being raised. But that wasn't the shocking part. As the smoke fully cleared, Brennan saw the farmhouse door open. A figure stumbled out, hands raised, wearing an American uniform. Major Richard Hastings from Allied Intelligence. The same officer who had given them their orders 12 hours ago. Don't shoot. Hastings screamed. I'm American. I'm. Cross appeared behind him, pressing the suppressed Thompson against the major's spine. Tell them what you really are. Hastings's face contorted with rage and fear. You have no idea what you've interfered with. No idea who I work for. Cross pulled a document from Hastings's coat. Even from 40 yards away, Brennan could see the swastika stamped on the paper. The mission gets darker. Get your men, Cross called to Brennan. All of them. We're moving in 5 minutes. Moving where? Brennan climbed out of the ditch, weapons still trained on Hastings. What the hell is going on? What's going on, Cross said, his voice deadly calm, is that you just uncovered the largest intelligence breach of the war. Major Hastings has been feeding German command Allied troop movements, supply lines, and battle plans for 7 months. 12 operations have been compromised. 473 men are dead because of him. Hastings spit blood on the ground. You're all dead anyway. They know about you, Cross. They know about your ghost unit. Berlin has put a bounty on your head that would make a man rich for life. Good thing I'm already dead then. Cross shoved Hastings forward. According to official records, my unit doesn't exist. We're casualties from Normandy, Kia and buried. Which means we don't have to follow anyone's rules. Brennan felt the weight of what he was hearing. You're telling me there's an entire unit of officially dead soldiers operating without command authority? I'm telling you that you and your men just became officially dead too. Cross gestured to the carnage around them. This ambush? It succeeds. All of Baker Company's reconnaissance unit Kia. That's what the reports will say. That's what command will be told. Because if Hastings could infiltrate intelligence, who knows how deep this goes? Mitchell's voice cracked with terror. I don't want to be dead, Sarge. Too late, kid. Vinny had recovered the wounded from the ditch, including Thompson, who was barely conscious. We saw too much. We know too much. We're ghosts now. Cross checked his watch. German reinforcements arrive in 4 minutes. Make your choice, Sergeant. Come with me and maybe, we figure out who else is compromised and stop this before more men die. Or stay here and file your report through proper channels, where it'll land on a desk controlled by people who might be working for Berlin. The choice that changes everything. Brennan looked at his men. 12 soldiers, half of them wounded, all of them terrified. They'd signed up to fight Germans, not to disappear from history and become ghosts operating in the shadows. But they'd also signed up to protect their brothers in arms. And if Cross was telling the truth, and everything Brennan had seen suggested he was, then following proper channels meant more ambushes, more betrayals, more men walking into kill boxes. Where are we going? Brennan asked. Cross smiled grimly. Berlin. Eventually. But first, we're going to a place that doesn't exist to meet people who are officially dead. We're going to hunt every Nazi spy operating inside Allied command. And we're going to do it without permission, without support, and without mercy. He pulled out a radio and spoke in rapid German, perfectly accented. Brennan didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Cross was pretending to be one of them, reporting the successful ambush. What are you doing? Brennan demanded. Buying us time. They think we're all dead now. Which means we have the one advantage no other unit has, the enemy thinks we don't exist. A distant rumble announced the arrival of German trucks. Time's up, Sergeant. You coming or dying? Brennan made the hardest decision of his life. Baker Company, he started, then stopped. There was no more Baker Company. Not officially. Ghost Unit, he said instead. We're moving out. As they disappeared into the French countryside, leaving behind the evidence of an ambush that would be recorded as a total German victory, Brennan couldn't shake one thought: they just volunteered for a mission that shouldn't exist, hunting traitors who might go all the way to the top, with a captain who operated completely outside military law. But the real question, the one that would haunt him for the next 3 days, wasn't about Cross or the mission. It was about Major Hastings's last words before Cross had silenced him with a sharp blow to the head: there are 12 more like me. And one of them knows you're coming. 72 hours after the ambush, Brennan crouched in the cellar of a bombed-out monastery 15 miles behind enemy lines. The stone walls, blackened by fire and artillery, offered little comfort and even less warmth. His men, his ghost unit now, huddled in the darkness, their faces gaunt from lack of sleep and the weight of what they'd learned. Cross stood at the single narrow window, watching the rain hammer against the broken glass. They're searching every village within a 20-mile radius. Systematic. Professional. Someone told them we survived. One of the 12, Vinny said bitterly. He'd been cleaning his weapon for the past hour, the same repetitive motion keeping his hands busy while his mind processed their impossible situation. Hastings wasn't lying. They know we're out here. Mitchell shivered in the corner, his youthful face aged by fear and combat. We should surrender. Tell them we're American prisoners. They have to follow Geneva Convention. Kid, Thompson interrupted, his bandaged leg propped against the wall, we're ghosts, remember? We don't exist. Which means if they catch us, we don't get prisoner treatment. We get bullets and unmarked graves. Cross turned from the window. He's right. But that's not our biggest problem. He pulled out a leather folder, water-damaged but intact. I've been going through Hastings's documents. The intelligence breach is worse than I thought. Brennan stood, his muscles stiff from the cold. How much worse? Operation Overlord worse. Cross spread papers across a makeshift table. They have detailed knowledge of Allied invasion plans. Troop numbers. Landing sites. Timeline. Everything. The cellar went silent except for the rain's relentless drumming. That's impossible, Brennan said finally. That intelligence is compartmentalized. No single person could have access to everything. Exactly. Cross's finger traced connections between names on a document written in both German and English. Which means this isn't one spy. It's a network. Hastings was just a node. There's someone higher up coordinating all of this. Someone with access to the highest levels of Allied command. The unexpected ally. A soft knock on the cellar door sent every weapon in the room pointing at the entrance. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks. The signal Cross had told them to expect, but trust wasn't something that came easy to dead men. Cross moved to the door, his modified Thompson ready. Identify yourself. Someone who also doesn't exist. The voice was female, French accented, and carried an edge of dark humor. Also, there are German patrols 2 streets over, so perhaps we could do introductions inside. Cross opened the door a crack, then wider. A woman slipped in, water streaming from a dark coat. She was maybe 30, with sharp features and eyes that had seen too much. She carried herself like a soldier, with the careful movements of someone constantly aware of threat. Captain Cross. I'd say it's good to see you again, but given our circumstances. She surveyed the room, her gaze lingering on each soldier. You picked up strays. Ghosts, actually. Cross secured the door. Everyone, this is Lieutenant Sophie Durant. French resistance. Officially executed by the Gestapo 6 months ago. The execution part was real enough, Sophie said, removing her coat and revealing weapons strapped to every available surface. Just not the dying part. Your OSS friends have a flair for the dramatic. She pulled out a small radio transmitter. I have news from London. Bad news. Brennan stepped forward. Worse than being hunted by Nazis while officially dead. Sophie smiled without humor. Much worse. 3 days ago, someone used Hastings's authentication codes to send a message to Allied command. They reported that you, she gestured to Brennan's unit, successfully identified a German spy ring before being killed in action. Very heroic. Very final. Let me guess, Vinny said. The spy ring they reported doesn't actually exist. Correct. Which means Allied command thinks the threat is contained. They'll drop their guard. And the real spies will have free rein to operate. Sophie turned to Cross. It gets worse. The message also reported your death, Captain. The Ghost Protocol is officially terminated. No more funding. No more support. No more mission. The impossible plan. Cross was silent for a long moment, his jaw working. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Perfect. Perfect. Brennan stared at him. We're completely cut off. We're free, Cross corrected. No oversight. No one second-guessing our methods. No bureaucrats telling us we can't do what needs to be done. He turned to Sophie. You have the list. She nodded, pulling out a carefully folded document. 12 names. All in positions of authority within Allied command structure. All with access to sensitive information. Any one of them could be compromised. Or all of them, Thompson added grimly. We can't investigate 12 people operating inside Allied command, Mitchell protested. We're dead men with no resources, no backup, no. We have something better than resources, Cross interrupted. We have the element of surprise. They think we're dead. That gives us the one advantage we need, they're not watching for us. Brennan studied the list. Colonels. Majors. A brigadier general. Even if we could get close enough to investigate them, what then? We can't exactly walk into Allied headquarters and start accusing senior officers of treason. No, Sophie agreed. But we can make them reveal themselves. She spread a map across the table. In 72 hours, there's a high-level strategy meeting at a chateau 30 miles from here. Every person on that list will be present. It's the largest gathering of Allied command since before D-Day. The Germans don't know about it? Vinny asked skeptically. They will, Cross said quietly. That's the point. One of those 12 will send word to their handlers. And when the Germans attack, we'll know who the traitor is. Brennan saw it now, the brutal calculus of Cross's plan. You're using Allied command as bait. I'm using traitors as bait, Cross corrected. The loyal officers will be protected. We'll be there, in the shadows, watching. When the spy makes contact with German forces, we take them. Get proof. Expose the network. Mitchell's voice cracked. And if we're wrong? If none of them are traitors? Then nobody gets hurt, Cross said. But we're not wrong. I've spent 16 months tracking this network. They're real. They're deadly. And they're planning something big. The betrayal within. For 2 days, they planned. Sophie provided weapons, intelligence, and false papers good enough to pass any checkpoint. They memorized the chateau layout, identified escape routes, and established fallback positions. On the third day, everything went wrong. Brennan woke to the sound of boots on stairs. German voices, sharp commands. They'd been found. Out. Now. Cross was already moving, shoving men toward the back exit. But when Brennan reached the door, he found it blocked. Not by Germans, by Mitchell. The young private stood with his rifle leveled at his own unit, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, Sarge. I'm so sorry. They have my sister. In a camp. They said if I helped them, they'd let her go. Time seemed to stop. Brennan could hear German soldiers clearing rooms above them, getting closer with each second. Mitchell's weapon shook in his hands, but it stayed pointed at Brennan's chest. Danny, Brennan said softly. Put down the gun. They'll kill her. Mitchell's voice broke. They showed me pictures. She's alive. But if I don't. Cross moved like lightning, disarming Mitchell before the kid could react. But the noise had given away their position. Boots thundered on the stairs. Go. Cross shoved Brennan toward a hidden passage Sophie had revealed. Get the others out. What about you? Cross chambered a round in his Thompson. Someone has to slow them down. Consider it a reminder that ghosts don't die easy. Vinny grabbed Brennan's arm, pulling him into the passage. Behind them, Cross's weapon opened up, it suppressed reports like angry whispers. Then grenades. Screaming. Chaos. They ran through tunnels that smelled of rot and death, emerged into daylight 3 blocks away, and kept running. When they finally stopped, gasping in an abandoned barn, Brennan did a head count. 9 men. They'd started with 12. Cross was gone. Mitchell was captured, or dead. And one more, Rodriguez, had been hit by shrapnel in the tunnels. They'd had to leave his body behind. What now? Thompson asked, his face pale with pain and exhaustion. Brennan looked at the remaining soldiers. They were broken, terrified, officially dead men with no mission and no leader. The decision that changed everything. Now, Brennan said, pulling out the list of 12 names Sophie had provided, we finish what Cross started. Are you insane? Vinny grabbed his shoulder. Cross had training. Resources. 16 months of experience. We're regular infantry who got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Exactly. Brennan met his eyes. Which is why they'll never see us coming. Cross operated alone, with a reputation that preceded him. We're nobody. Ghosts that even the ghost hunters don't know about. Sophie emerged from the shadows, making half the unit jump. You've got spirit, Sergeant. Cross chose well. She handed him a radio. The chateau meeting is in 24 hours. The spy will make contact before then. If you want to do this, it has to be now. Brennan looked at his men. Every face showed fear. But behind the fear, he saw something else, determination. They'd watched their brothers die in an ambush set up by a traitor. They'd learned their own command structure was compromised. And they'd lost their leader trying to expose it. Cross said we were ghosts, Brennan said quietly. Dead men with nothing to lose. Maybe that's exactly what we need to be. Not soldiers following orders. Ghosts. Operating outside the rules. Outside the law. Until we find every traitor and make them pay. Thompson spoke up, his voice steady despite his injuries. I'm in. Those bastards tried to kill us. Time to return the favor. One by one, the others nodded. There's one problem, Sophie said. Mitchell. The Germans have him. He knows about the chateau meeting. They'll make him talk. Danny didn't know the full plan, Brennan said. Only that we were investigating possible traitors. That's not enough for the Germans to stop the meeting. No, Sophie agreed. But it's enough to make them more cautious. More alert. Harder to infiltrate. Vinny checked his weapon. Then we don't infiltrate. We do what Cross would do. We improvise. Adapt. Become what they can't predict. Brennan folded the list of names and secured it inside his uniform. Sophie, can you get us inside the chateau grounds? I can get you close. Maybe into the service entrance. After that, you're on your own. That's all we need. Brennan looked at his ghost unit. Tomorrow night, at that chateau, someone is going to send word to the Germans. Someone is going to betray every Allied soldier fighting this war. And when they do, we're going to be watching. We're going to get proof. And then we're going to make sure they never betray anyone again. The rain had stopped. Through the barn's broken roof, stars appeared, cold, distant, indifferent to the war being fought below them. Cross bought us time with his life, Brennan said softly. We owe him justice. We owe all the men who died in that ambush justice. Tomorrow, we start collecting. The final preparation. They spent the night in silence, each man alone with his thoughts. Brennan wrote letters he knew would never be sent, to his wife, his daughter, his mother. Words from a dead man to people who believed he was already gone. At dawn, Sophie returned with German uniforms. The chateau staff have been infiltrated for months. These will get you past the first checkpoints. After that. She shrugged. After that, you'll need more than uniforms. We'll need luck, Thompson muttered. No, Brennan said, pulling on the enemy uniform that felt like betrayal against his skin. We'll need to be ghosts. Cross taught us that. The enemy can't fight what they can't see. Can't predict what doesn't follow the rules. Can't kill what's already dead. As the sun rose over occupied France, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire, 9 ghosts prepared for a mission that would either expose the greatest intelligence breach of the war, or end with their bodies in unmarked graves. But as they loaded weapons and checked equipment, none of them noticed Sophie's hand slip to the radio at her belt. None of them saw her fingers tap out a message in rapid Morse code. And none of them knew that the chateau meeting wasn't the trap they thought it was. They were. The chateau rose from the French countryside like a monument to a war that had forgotten grace. Its walls, once white stone adorned with climbing roses, now bore the scars of artillery and machine gun fire. Brennan watched it through binoculars from a tree leaned 300 yards away, counting guards, identifying weak points, looking for any sign that the trap had been set. 12 guards visible, he whispered to Vinny beside him. More inside. Too many for a simple strategy meeting. They're expecting trouble. Vinny's Brooklyn accent carried an edge of fear he'd learned to hide. Cross was right. Someone warned them. Behind them, the remainder of the Ghost unit, now just 7 men after Thompson's wounds had finally forced them to leave him in Sophie's care, prepared for what might be their last mission. The German uniforms felt wrong on their skin, like wearing death itself. Sophie had gotten them this close. The service entrance would open in 20 minutes when the evening staff shift changed. They'd have 60 seconds to blend in with the German guards, reach the chateau's interior, and position themselves where they could observe the Allied command meeting. Sarge, one of the men whispered urgently. Movement. East side. Brennan swung his binoculars. A convoy of vehicles approached, Allied staff cars with American flags. Inside those cars were the 12 names on their list. 12 officers, one of whom was feeding intelligence to the Germans. One of whom had orchestrated the ambush that should have killed them all. This is it, Brennan said quietly. Remember the plan. We split into 3 teams. Vinny, take the west wing. Carson, you and Davis secure the service corridors. The rest with me. We watch. We wait. And when the spy makes contact, we take them alive. And if things go wrong? Carson asked. Then we make sure at least one of us gets out with proof. Brennan checked his weapon. The world needs to know the truth, even if we don't live to tell it. The moment of infiltration. The shift change happened exactly as Sophie had promised. For 60 seconds, the service entrance was chaos, guards ending duty, new guards beginning, staff moving supplies, confusion and routine mixing in perfect cover. They moved like ghosts. Brennan's team slipped through the entrance dressed as German soldiers, their papers forged but perfect. A sergeant glanced at them, nodded, waved them through. Simple as breathing. Simple as dying. Inside, the chateau was a contradiction. Elegant halls designed for parties and politics now filled with military equipment and soldiers. Allied officers mingled with their aides in the grand ballroom, unaware that the walls were lined with observers, German soldiers assigned to security, but clearly there for intelligence gathering. There, Vinny's voice crackled through the small radio hidden in Brennan's ear. East corner. The 12 are gathering. Private meeting before the main conference. Brennan positioned himself on a balcony overlooking the ballroom, partially hidden by heavy curtains. From here, he could see everything. The 12 officers Sophie had identified. The German guards. The exits. And, his blood went cold, Sophie herself, standing near the entrance in conversation with a German colonel. Vinny, Brennan breathed into the radio. Sophie's here. With Germans. Something's wrong. Maybe she's maintaining cover. Vinny suggested, but doubt crept into his voice. Before Brennan could respond, the private meeting began. The 12 officers gathered in a side room visible through glass doors. Brennan strained to read lips, to catch any sign of who would break away, who would make contact with enemy handlers. Then he saw it. Not one of the 12. Sophie. Moving with practiced ease through the chateau, slipping into rooms where she shouldn't be, speaking in hushed tones with German officers. And on her wrist, Brennan's binoculars confirmed it, a bracelet. Small, silver, inscribed with German text. The same bracelet that had been mentioned in Hastings's documents. The identification marker for deep-cover German intelligence agents. Oh God, Brennan whispered. It was never the 12. They were decoys. Sophie's the coordinator. She's been running the entire network. The trap springs. As if hearing his realization, Sophie looked up. Her eyes met Brennan's across the ballroom. For one frozen moment, they stared at each other, the ghost and the woman who had created ghosts. Then she smiled and raised her hand. Every German guard in the chateau turned toward Brennan's position. Weapons rose. Shouts filled the air. The Allied officers in the meeting room looked up in confusion as chaos erupted around them. "It's a trap!" Brennan screamed into the radio. "Sophie's the spy. All teams, extract now." But even as he ran, he understood. This had been the plan all along. Use the ghost unit as bait to flush out anyone investigating the spy network. Sophie hadn't been helping them, she'd been hurting them toward this moment. Cross had suspected. That's why he'd stayed behind. Not to slow the Germans, but to give Brennan time to realize the truth. Brennan crashed through a window onto a lower roof as bullets chewed up the wall behind him. Below, he could see Vinny's team fighting their way toward an exit, outnumbered but not outmatched. Carson was down, wounded but moving. Davis covering their retreat. "West side!" Brennan shouted. "Rally at the west side!" He sprinted across rooftops as the chateau erupted into a war zone. Allied officers were being evacuated in confusion, German guards converging on the Americans dressed as their comrades, and somewhere in the chaos, Sophie was trying to ensure no one escaped to tell the truth. The confrontation. Brennan dropped into an alley where Vinny and 3 others had regrouped. Head count. Carson's hit bad. Davis and Morrison are still inside. Vinny's report cut off as Sophie appeared at the alley entrance, flanked by German soldiers. "I really am impressed, Sergeant," she called out in perfect, unaccented English. "Cross warned me you were resourceful. I should have listened." "Cross knew," Brennan said, his weapon trained on her. "He knew it was you." "Of course he knew. Why do you think I had to have him killed?" Sophie stepped closer, fearless despite the guns pointed at her. Nathan Cross was many things, but he wasn't a fool. The moment he saw Hastings's documents, he realized the network was too sophisticated for one man. He knew there had to be a coordinator. "So you set the ambush at the monastery. Made it look like Mitchell betrayed us. Poor Daniel. He really did have a sister in a camp." "That part was true. The Germans are holding her even now." Sophie's smile was cruel. "But he never betrayed you." "I did. I told them where you were. And I told them to leave Daniel alive so you'd think he was the traitor." Brennan's finger tightened on the trigger. "How many men have died because of you? Does it matter?" Sophie shrugged. "I'm fighting for my country. Just as you are. The difference is, my country is winning." "Not for long." A new voice joined the conversation. From the shadows stepped Captain Nathan Cross, battered and bloody but very much alive. His modified Thompson was pointed directly at Sophie's head. The impossible survivor. "Nathan." Sophie's composure cracked for the first time. "You're dead. I watched the monastery collapse on you." "You watched a tunnel collapse," Cross corrected. "An old smuggler's route from centuries ago. It goes down, then out. I've used it before." He glanced at Brennan. "Sorry I couldn't warn you. Needed Sophie to believe I was dead so she'd get careless." "You set us up," Vinny said accusingly. "You let us walk into this knowing we'd be targets." "I let you become bait," Cross agreed. "Because Sophie would never reveal herself unless she thought she'd won. Unless she had us where she wanted us." He pulled something from his jacket, a portable recording device, cutting-edge technology that shouldn't exist. "And she just confessed to everything. Every word recorded. Every admission of guilt. Proof that will hold up in any tribunal." Sophie's hand moved toward her weapon, but Cross was faster. His shot, suppressed, precise, hit her pistol, sending it flying. German soldiers raised their rifles, but found themselves surrounded as more figures emerged from the shadows. American soldiers. Real ones, in proper uniforms, with proper weapons. Colonel Mackenzie, 101st Airborne, the lead soldier, identified himself. On orders from General Eisenhower himself. "We've been tracking your ghost unit for days, Captain Cross." "Then you heard everything," Cross said. "We did. And we owe you an apology. When we received reports of your death, we should have known better. Nathan Cross doesn't die easy." Mackenzie gestured to his men. "Secure the prisoner. And someone get these men medics, they look like they've been through hell." The truth revealed. 2 hours later, Brennan sat in a tent outside the chateau, nursing coffee that tasted like liquid gold after days of nothing. Cross sat across from him, bandages covering most of his visible skin but eyes still sharp. "The network is bigger than we thought," Cross said quietly. "Sophie was the coordinator, but she wasn't working alone. We found documents in her quarters. Names. Locations. Drop points. She'd been running agents across 3 countries. How many?" Brennan asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. 47 confirmed. Another 23 suspected. Cross took a long drink of his own coffee. Every single one positioned to feed intelligence directly to Berlin. Troop movements. Supply lines. Battle plans. The Germans have known our every move for months. Brennan felt sick. How many men died because of this? Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. Cross's voice was hollow. But it's over now. Allied intelligence is rolling up the entire network. By this time tomorrow, they'll all be in custody or dead. And the 12 officers? The ones on the list? Clean. Every one of them. Sophie used them as bait, just like she used us. Made us think the threat was inside command while she operated freely as a resistance fighter. Cross laughed bitterly. She was brilliant. I'll give her that. She had us all fooled. The cost of victory. Colonel Mackenzie entered the tent, his face grave. "We found Mitchell. Private Daniel Mitchell. The Germans were holding him in a farmhouse 2 miles from here." Brennan stood quickly. "Is he alive?" "Barely. They tortured him for 3 days trying to get information about your unit." Mackenzie's expression softened. "He didn't break, Sergeant. Not once. Kid didn't tell them a damn thing, even though they showed him pictures of his sister being executed." The tent went silent. "His sister?" Brennan's voice cracked. "She died 6 months ago. Typhus, in the camp. The Germans were using old photographs to manipulate him. There was never any deal. Never any rescue. They were just using his grief as a weapon." Brennan sank back into his chair, the weight of it crushing him. Mitchell had thought he was betraying them to save family. Instead, he'd been tortured for loyalty to men who had doubted him. "Where is he now?" Brennan asked. "Field hospital. Medics say he'll live, but..." Mackenzie trailed off. "He's asking for you, Sergeant. Keep saying he's sorry. Keep saying he failed you." Brennan was on his feet and moving before Mackenzie finished speaking. "Brothers in arms." Mitchell lay in a hospital cot, his face unrecognizable under bandages and bruises. When Brennan entered, the kid's one visible eye tried to focus, filling with tears when recognition hit. "Sarge," Mitchell whispered through broken lips. "I'm sorry. I thought," they said. "I know, Danny." Brennan pulled up a chair, taking the kid's hand carefully. "I know what they told you. And I know you didn't break. You're a hero, son. I'm not. I pointed my gun at you. At my own unit. You were trying to save your sister. There's no shame in that. Brennan squeezed gently. And when they had you, when they were doing God knows what to you, you could have told them everything. Where we were going. What we were planning. You could have ended your pain in seconds. But you didn't. You stayed loyal. You stayed strong. Mitchell's tears flowed freely now. She's dead, Sarge. They killed her months ago. I was trying to save someone who was already gone. You were trying to save family. That's what soldiers do. That's what brothers do. Brennan's own voice broke. You're my brother, Danny. You hear me? This unit, these ghosts, we're family. And family doesn't abandon each other. Am I still? Mitchell struggled with the words. Am I still one of you? Always, Brennan said firmly. Ghost to ghost. Dead to the world, but alive to each other. You're one of us until the day you actually die, and probably even after that. A weak smile crossed Mitchell's ruined face. Ghosts don't die easy. Captain Cross said that. Yeah, kid. Ghosts don't die easy. The final mission. 3 days later, the Ghost unit, what remained of it, stood in formation outside Allied headquarters. 9 men who officially didn't exist, being addressed by generals who officially had never heard of them. General Eisenhower himself walked the line, stopping before each soldier. When he reached Brennan, he paused. Sergeant Brennan. Your actions over the past week have potentially saved thousands of Allied lives. The intelligence network you helped expose was the most dangerous breach in modern military history. Eisenhower's voice carried across the compound. Unfortunately, I cannot publicly acknowledge what you've done. Cannot award you medals. Cannot even officially admit you exist. We understand, sir, Brennan said. But I can do this. Eisenhower extended his hand. I can tell you, soldier to soldier, that you and your men are heroes. Real heroes. The kind who do what's right even when no one will ever know. Brennan shook the general's hand, feeling the weight of everything they'd been through. The ambush. The betrayals. The losses. Cross's impossible survival. Mitchell's torture. Sophie's treachery. It had all led to this moment. What happens to us now, sir? Vinnie asked. Eisenhower glanced at Cross, who stood at attention nearby. That's up to Captain Cross. His ghost protocol is being officially reinstated with full backing. He'll need good men for what comes next. What comes next, sir? Brennan asked. Cross stepped forward, a ghost of a smile on his scarred face. Berlin, Sergeant. We're going to Berlin. Every Nazi spy, every collaborator, every traitor who sold out Allied soldiers, we're going to hunt them all. And we're going to do it as ghosts. Dead men that the enemy will never see coming. He looked at each soldier in turn. But it's volunteer only. What we do, what we are, it's not normal military service. It's dangerous. It's thankless. And officially, it doesn't exist. You sign up for this, you stay dead to the world. No contact with family. No recognition. No way back to your old lives. Brennan didn't hesitate. I'm in. One by one, the others echoed the commitment. Even Mitchell, still bandaged but standing on his own, raised his hand. Then welcome to Ghost Protocol, Cross said. We've got work to do. Epilogue, The Ghosts Who Changed History. The official record states that Sergeant Jack Brennan and 11 members of Baker Company's reconnaissance unit were killed in action on November 12, 1944, victims of a German ambush in occupied France. Their names are carved on memorial walls. Their families received folded flags and heartfelt condolences. The official record is a lie. For the next 6 months, Ghost Protocol operated deep behind enemy lines, dismantling what remained of Sophie Durant's spy network. They identified 43 German agents embedded in Allied operations. They prevented 12 major intelligence breaches. They saved countless lives that will never know how close they came to disaster. Captain Nathan Cross's unit officially doesn't exist. The soldiers who serve in it are listed as casualties. The missions they complete are never recorded. The enemies they defeat are credited to luck, coincidence, or conventional units. But in the shadows of history, in the spaces between official reports and classified documents, the ghosts continue their work. Dead men fighting a war that most people will never know was fought. Sophie Durant was executed for treason in January 1945. She went to her death smiling, convinced that her network had done enough damage to change the war's outcome. She was wrong. Every agent she recruited was captured or killed. Every operation she compromised was salvaged. Her legacy wasn't victory, it was failure. Private Daniel Mitchell recovered from his injuries and served with Ghost Protocol until the war's end. He never spoke about his sister again, but those who served with him said he fought with the fury of a man who had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. They say he was the bravest soldier they ever knew. The chateau where it all came together was destroyed by Allied bombing 2 weeks after the confrontation. Official reports claim it was a German command post. Only a handful of people know the real reason it was erased from the map, to eliminate any evidence of how close the Allies came to total intelligence collapse. Today, in the archives of the Canadian War Museum, there's a sealed file marked, Ghost Protocol, Eyes Only. Inside are mission reports that will remain classified for another 50 years. Names of soldiers who officially died but secretly lived. Operations that never officially happened but changed the course of history. And somewhere in those documents is a photograph. 9 men in tattered uniforms, faces gaunt from combat and stress, standing before a burned-out chateau in France. They're not smiling. They're not celebrating. They're just standing, ghosts bearing witness to their own deaths and rebirths. Beneath the photograph, in handwriting that belongs to someone who officially died in 1944, is a single sentence. We are the ones who don't exist. And we're the reason you're still free. The ghosts of World War II are still out there, if you know where to look. In the spaces between official history and classified truth. In the stories that soldiers whisper but never write down. In the missions that saved thousands but will never be acknowledged. They're dead men walking. Ghosts who haunt the corridors of history, forever fighting a war that officially ended in 1945 but secretly continues in the shadows. And if you ever wonder how close we came to losing everything, how close the Allies came to total intelligence collapse, remember the men who became ghosts to save us all. Remember Sergeant Jack Brennan and his unit. The ones who died twice, once officially, once for real, so that the truth could survive. Remember the Ghost Protocol. Because some stories are too dangerous to tell while the men who lived them are still alive. But now, 75 years later, it's time the world knew, there were ghosts in World War II. And they saved us all.